Against all food animal production to be free-range or pasture-raised, with Rachel Goupil, Aidan Taylor, Avery Estep, Natalia Crane. Animals in Society. Some history and background about pasture-raised farm animals. For a long time, this was a standard and more traditional way of farming, up until the 19th century. Before then, it made sense for these animals to be raised outside in a pasture that would resemble how they would live before domestication. However, by the time of the early 19th century, the agricultural revolution in Britain led to limited space for farmland, forcing these fields and pastures to become smaller and smaller. This eventually led to the shift for industrial farming in the 20th century, where Britain and America found it easier to manage as well as easier to keep up with the demand for animal products. This was seen as cheaper and more efficient way of farming for animal products than the traditional free-range or pasture-raised animals. When talking about the ethical aspects of free-range or pasture-raised animals, it is easy to talk about how it is more freeing for the animal and how it helps them express natural behaviors. However, there are some negative aspects. A big issue of free-range and pasture-raised animals is the unsafe conditions that the animals are exposed to. These include parasites, diseases, predators, each other, and harsh weather conditions. When in contact with multiple animals and humans, both can end up sick or with issues such as bird flu, ticks, and worms. There are many potential predators from hawks to coyotes to foxes that would cause harm to animals left in such open fields held within a fence. When in herds or flocks, animals tend to pick on each other, usually on the weakest ones. Harsh weather can include heat waves, storms, or cold winters, depending on the area.
All right, so for the cultural and sociological importance of this is because we've been using the similar farming methods for so long. The feedlots were invented in the 1950s. It's familiar and reliable, and it's a method of farming designed to actually reduce the animal stress. These different systems were set up for certain animal behaviors because animals aren't the same as humans, therefore their natural instincts might not be the same as what we would prefer. So farming is the backbone of America and it is ingrained in our culture. And forcing larger spaces for the animals can actually sometimes induce the stress and cost more money for the farmers. Some current events that are happening right now is Proposition 12. This was a law that was signed into 2018. This basically is just requiring larger spaces for swine, poultry, and veal. However, it's had a lot of negative impacts on farmers. It's costing them a lot more money and space, which is making them raise their prices. The smaller spaces are actually meant to sometimes benefit the animals. For example, farrowing crates are actually meant to be small for the sow because a lot of times the moms will crush their babies. So just certain things like this just comes to show that being informed and being well informed is important. And this is also costing us, the consumer, more money through different laws like this.
This is Rachel Capel, and these are the reasons against free-range and pasture-raised animal production. While free-range and pasture-raised animal production may seem like the more appealing option, it has its fair share of downsides. Economics, environmental impact, and health and safety are all factors that are affected by free-range farming. There is predator control that needs to be evaluated. There's definitely a greater risk and loss of animals to various predators when they are not kept in confinement. Having the animals in such large areas requires a lot more management of fencing and keeping them safe. Keeping them in confinement reduces the losses, contributing to a more efficient production system and less feed. Another huge factor that supports confined animal production is how much less land it uses compared to its pasture-raised counterpart. Pasture-raised beef can take up to a huge amount of land, and if that method of production were to grow, we would need to convert a lot of acres of cropland for their pasture, which would then affect our land and usage for other crops. Expanding free-range cattle pasture land could lead to a lot of detrimental effects on the land as well. Some of these effects include soil compaction and depletion and waterway erosion. Overgrazing can lead to soil erosion and also a loss of native vegetation. Not only is the environment at risk, but there's a higher operation cost that incurs with this method of ranching because of the need for more land and also to hire more labor to supervise and manage this extra land. It is more expensive, which correlates to the higher price that consumers pay for free-range or pasture-raised meat. Having the animals in such a larger area increases their risk of exposure to a lot more bacterial diseases and parasites. Not only can the diseases be an issue, but poor weather conditions can affect the animals' health and productivity if they don't have access to shelter. This can be a lot harder to manage on a huge land scale for proper pasture maintenance. The wide variability of their diet being out on pasture can also lead to an inconsistency in product quality. In free-range or more open space farming, there can be the issue of the animals competing for resources. A scientific study from the NIH done on comparing free-range to cage housing systems of laid hens in China showed in their data that overall there was less feeder and drinker space for the hens in a free-range system compared to a cage system. This statistic was also shown that the free-range system had a significantly lower egg production rate than the cage system. While some people may view the conventional method of factory farming as unnatural, it has its benefits and thrives for a reason. As time goes on, everything including food is getting more and more expensive. Factory farming method allows our food to remain affordable and at a much cheaper cost than free-range or pasture-raised animal products. The products are more affordable because of the ability to raise a lot more animals on a large-scale production system in a smaller space, allowing for the food to be produced more efficiently and at a lower cost per unit. Other factors such as cheaper feed, lower labor costs, and vertical integration all contribute to the overall lower cost of the product. Most factory farms use commodity crops like corn and soy for their animal feed, which greatly reduces feeding costs. Mechanization and a lot of automatic systems are used in factory farming, which reduces a lot of labor need and things move a lot quicker. On top of that, vertical integration makes for more streamlined and cheaper production methods since most factory farms control their whole supply chain, from processing to distribution. These factory farms create jobs and are huge employers as well for the communities they are in. Not only do they pay property taxes that fund their community and support local suppliers, they also reduce food security issues for the region. General laborers who work in this industry have a secure job, and they hire a wide variety of people with sometimes even no experience. Factory farms also have the ability to maintain a steady and quality consistent supply of meat, dairy, and egg products year-round for constant availability in markets. Improved food safety is also a huge factor that factory farms excel at managing. These farms usually have a lot stricter food safety and animal welfare regulations and monitoring. They are on top of ensuring sanitary conditions and controlling disease outbreaks. Having the animals in a confined space helps with this and makes it a lot easier to control their environment and implement biosecurity measures.
In the video, Is Free-Range Livestock Better for the Environment? It talks about how it is not a good use of land and how it is a less efficient way of farming.
And for our opinion and summary, as a group, we believe that pasture raised and free range tends to sometimes do more harm than good. It seems that it negatively impacts the farmers and hasn't really harmed the animals to begin with. The way that farmers have been raising their livestock has been fine. although it can seem harsh on the animal, and we need to understand that livestock needs are different from human needs, and they need to be treated as such. And this here is our works cited.